No gimmicks, no shortcuts. Raphael's mission with Four Copas is simple. Strip tequila down to its roots, rebuild it with truth, grit, and legacy. This isn't hype. It's the truth in the bottle. And if that truth burns a little going down, good. It means it's real. On this episode of Tactical Tequila Podcast with your host, Matt Wilson. If you enjoy the show, hit the like button, subscribe, and share it to your social media platforms. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the show. Welcome back, everyone. Matt with Tactical Tequila Podcast here. On tonight's show, I have a great show planned for you. We have Raphael De Anda with Four Copas Tequila. He didn't just step into the tequila game, he walked in swinging. While others chased clout with celebrity faces, Raphael doubled down on purity, process, and legacy. Four Copas isn't built to blend in. It's organic, authentic, and forged with conviction in an industry drowning in shortcuts. This episode peels back the layers from the fields to the fight as Raphael breaks down what it really takes to scale with soul, protect tradition, and outlast trends. If you're looking for the typical agave fairy tale, this ain't it, folks. Welcome to the truth in the bottle. Raphael, thank you for being on the show. I appreciate your time. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much, my friend, for having me. It's an honor. And I can't wait to, let the world know a little bit of my family's tequila and what makes Four Copas really unique in this landscape of many tequila brands.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to throw some rapid fire questions at you first. Which matters to you more, being respected in the industry of veterans or disrupting everything they've built?
Coming from a small town of Barandas, where my family is from, I have a lot of respect for the veterans, and reputation is everything. And for me, I think that says a lot about who you are and how people see you going forward, especially within the industry.
What's one corner of the tequila world that's still full of fakes, and why hasn't anyone cleaned it up?
I think it's how you drink it, actually. Everyone has the worm or something else. Try to make it a little bit more spicy, but I think you just drink it neat. And a lot of the times, don't overcomplicate it. Just enjoy all of our hard work. So I think that's what makes it really special.
I like that. You walk into a bar. They don't carry Four Copas. Do you educate, walk out, or call out the buyer?
Well, I will be talking to the buyer, that's for sure, but I definitely want to educate. I'm a tequila fan first, and then a tequila producer secondly. So I have a lot of respect for a lot of different owners. It's a small community. We all know each other. So I'd love to educate people about other great brands as well.
And so if someone says organic tequila is a gimmick, what do you say to them?
Which, for the record, wouldn't be the first time. I get that every once in a while. I would say you have to try it. Try it for yourself, and you'll notice the difference, especially the next day and how you feel. I feel like quality tequila, especially the organic tequila, you'll feel how clean the end product is.
What was one moment that convinced you that tequila was your legacy and not just a business move?
I don't know if it was one specific moment. I grew up indirectly in the business for many years. My grandfather was a agave owner and grower since his family. So I'm a fourth generation agave grower. But we backed into it. We just focused on growing the plant, and we never thought about producing a tequila. So I think over time is where you start getting to know the community. We grew up in Arandas. We split our time. I mean, I obviously speak fluent English and what have you. So I'm born and raised here in Southern California, but we would go back to Arandas every 2-3 months. And you always bumping into other tequila producers, be it the Camarena family or the Bañuelos family, among many others. But those are probably the two most prominent in that region.
What part of your upbringing most shaped how you lead Four Copas today?
I think it is having that strong connection to our roots. spending so many times, so many summers and so many experiences down there between Capilla de Guadalupe with our very close friends, between Arambas, just hanging out with our cousins all that whole time. You learn a high amount of respect for the people there, and what makes it truly special is the culture. So somebody that didn't grow up in that environment or doesn't have that strong of a connection sometimes won't understand a lot of the nonverbals, or how do I put it, the origins that come from there and why they matter so much to us. So we still have the family ranch that we've had for over 100 years. My grandfather was very well known vice president treasurer of Arambas for many, many years in the 80s. So a lot of these old families in the downtown area, especially. Heck, my uncle is literally across the street from the mayor's office. So, so
Wow.
yeah, so we have a lot of strong roots in the area, and I think that's what makes it a real education is going into the industry.
Coming into the industry and making your tequila, being the fourth generation, has anyone in your circle ever called you crazy for taking this path? And are they still watching from the sidelines?
A lot of people from my circle, well, the first thing they told us is, "I can't believe you decided to take the leap and start producing tequila." And it's quite common. Everyone always has that inkling, especially many families grow agave in the region. And so the first question is why? Why would you do such a thing? And then we said, we have an opportunity to be a part of a historic tequila brand. Not many people can say we're part of the world's first organic tequila, certified organic. And people in Los Altos have we are proud people. I'll include myself in that one. So they'll say, "Oh, come on, organic," and we've known the Siete Leguas family, we've known the original Don Julio family doing it for many years. Well, how can you claim to be the world's first organic tequila? We said, well, we didn't invent the whole process. We invented how to certify it. That we were the first ones to really go through that certification process and then claim as a result. So I think since we were offered to be a part of such a historic tequila, we couldn't pass up that opportunity.
So, talking about being certified organic, can you kind of go into the process of getting certified as organic?
Sure. Yeah. So when you have a field, first of all, you don't see many certified organic fields in Los Altos. So to become certified organic, you have to contact an organization. BioAgricert is typically the one that you go through. Kiwa is another one that we use these days, and they will be the middleman on behalf of the USDA. From there, they'll work with whatever factory you're producing and to go through the whole process and through the maturity of the plant. Make sure you're not planting using any kind of we say the word in Spanish abono, so any kind of fertilizers or any kind of pesticides into the agave. So making the process as pure as possible. There's also a way to clean the fields over the course of many years to become certified organic. So you essentially have to stop using any kind of pesticides and let the fields just grow naturally with only organic uh, pest, uh, pesticide killers, because the plants do get infected over time. So sometimes we will lose half a field or a full field due to illness. And so that's what makes producing organic tequila so expensive. And technically speaking, there is also organic additives, but as we always said, why would you add organic additives when the process is already so expensive? We're paying thousands of dollars each year to get this organization to come and certify us and make sure we're going through the process. Why would you then ruin that after you're going through such a extensive process?
So, each year you have to recertify as organic?
So you certify it as an importer, you certify it as a producer, and you certify it with the distillery as well. So there's many levels. Everyone has to go through the process and be aware of what, in our case, Kiwa is demanding to be compliant with the USDA. And so there is a constant yearly check.
Okay. Kind of an off the wall question. If you weren't in tequila now, where would all this fire and energy that you have, where would it be going?
Sure. No, that's a great question. And one that I get every once in a while as well. Believe it or not, I've been fortunate to, people in Los Altos by nature are very entrepreneurial. And my family is also one of them. So we also have a variety of different investments. But I grew up loving the taco business, believe it or not. So I love being around the taco guys, being around taqueros, eating the tacos de lengua, de cabeza, that's another one of our really close family businesses that we take great pride in. So people from Arandas, their main export around the world is taco guys and tequila producers, and we happen to have a foot in both worlds. So I love, being true to my Mexican culture in this case, in every sense.
Well, I mean, who doesn't love a great taco?
Oh yeah, well, I'm biased. I think it's amazing. It's my favorite.
What would you say the boldest and biggest risk that you've taken is, and did it have a potential that it could have actually buried four Copas, but instead it was more of your breakout moment?
So this is a special loaded question, I guess in a positive sense, because the brand itself has so much history. And the brand, I would say, did die a few times. Um, so it was founded in 1997 with four very close friends, and it's also based indirectly off the famous song by Jose Alfredo Jimenez. It went through a massive boom. So many people talk to Mike of Tequila Aficionado. Um, Mario Felix. Who better than to talk with the main man himself? His uncle was one of the original shareholders of the brand.
Okay.
And yeah, his uncle Lupe. And which it was so great to be able to talk to him. And he has a lot of these old bottles. One of them, he's gifted me a few, but this is one of the original ones with the agave inside in the middle.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
yeah, so you'll see the four copas in the gold, and then our original distillery of La Quemada. So we came in the 2000s with one of those other shareholders. At that time, he was the majority shareholder, and the brand was going through a lot of turmoil. Let's just say that there was deals that weren't delivered on, for all intents and purposes, the brand did die. So we essentially turned around, being agave producers and people from the area, and said, "Oh my gosh, what do we do from this? Let's get creative. Let's figure out a way to save this historic factory." And so we went through a huge amount of process, many trips to Mexico City, to Guadalajara over the course of probably 10 to 15 years with my father, and getting to know different people. And we weren't able to save the factory, but we were able to save the original yeast strand and bring the original master distiller that created the brand, Sebastian Melendres, to 1480, which is product that you're drinking right now, which made an excellent product back when we were there. One of the few brands that was produced there, and we spent a few years there. And then, so going back to your original question, we essentially did start from scratch. And so from there we transitioned to the amazing, wonderful legend that Ileana Partida is herself, based on Sebastian's retirement. He said, "Hey, this is the direction I think you guys should go in. Who better to take it than Ileana Partida and the amazing Partida family?" And once we connected based on Sebastian's introduction, the rest is history. So we feel super honored to be a part of the 1522 family, and we see a very bright future, hopefully building our own distillery in the same area where we've always been.
Well, and so I actually just had Ileana on the show.
Oh, amazing.
So she's actually the episode prior to you.
Oh, who
Uh,
better? There you go.
yeah,
Perfect.
and so we chatted a little bit last night about brands that she's involved in, and she is just an amazing person, down to earth, and not only that, but as far as a master distiller goes, she is right up there among the greats, in my opinion.
Oh well, I mean, I'm very biased, but I think she's really, really special. Something completely different from the master distillers in Los Altos, which are people I grew up around. And I think she's a breath of fresh air, and what an icon being a female master distiller as well.
She has such creativity and innovation when it comes to making tequila. It's different from the old school um, tequileros than more new school, but also at the same with preserving tradition. So, I'm so excited just to see where she goes in the next 10 years, just because she's always trying to step outside the box, and she's always trying to, as she says, she's a perfectionist. So she's always trying to make it better. And I'm so happy that she's producing for Copas because it's an amazing tequila.
Yeah, and it was tough when we first approached her. She doesn't have the vol. She also is kind of a similar scenario when we got to 1480. They didn't have that huge volume of brands that they were, producing or what have you. So she was really able to focus with us and said, "Hey, how do we preserve our legacy?" Especially Sebastian kind of was that transition point. And Ileana, like you're saying, is a mastermind. She said, "Okay, let's try it here. I recommend we tweak it here, 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 and here, and let's taste it and compare it to all the other past expressions that you've developed." And I think the addition that we're producing with her, which Tim got to try last week, it'll be our first release. He's actually the first person to try it, him and a few of the other members of the New York, New Jersey Agave Club, which was very cool that Ileana was able to host them and open a barrel for them to try. We're planning to release that end of this year, early next year, as our first release with her.
Oh, very nice. And moments ago you showed a bottle, one of the first bottles.
Yeah, this guy right here.
Are there any of those that are still in circulation that you know of?
These are massive collector's items. At the time when this was produced, this actually wasn't allowed to be shipped into the U.S. because as you can see, there's an agave in there. Um, the U.S. government was afraid that it would break. So they weren't allowed into the U.S. So you had to bring them essentially from Mexico. So if you find one these days, it's a collector's item. They're definitely not in circulation anymore. But there's a few editions out there. So there's a shorty that we tried with Mario on air as well. He has an extensive collection of the original production just because of his connection with his uncle. So it was an amazing time capsule that he still has.
Is there a decision that you've made that would have been considered blasphemy for old school producers?
Yeah, when we took the brand on, a lot of these, well, for us, like I said, most of our connection come from the people in Los Altos, and we mentioned, hey, we're gonna move from the original distillery. And everyone's, how dare you? You guys are four copas in La Quemada. I mean, that was a historic distillery at that time. And we said, well, the distillery is so old and decrepit. To get it up and running would cost enormous amounts of money, and we wouldn't even be able to produce right away. That was a very controversial decision to move to 1480. But since we still had Sebastian, that's what gave us the confidence to move forward. And the Alvaro and Hilario Montes were great partners with us for many years. So that was, I'd say, the most controversial decision because of the whole fact that we're moving from La Quemada.
Talking about that, have you ever looked at another brand's success and thought they played it safe? I'm not going to.
Oof. Another brand's success that played it safe. I mean, there's a, eh, I would like to say that there's a lot of brands you have to innovate as time goes on. For example, when we first started, and I say we, being my family's involvement, the brand was already in existence. The first thing that they told us, or our distributors told us, is you better not run out of product. If I'm going to work hard and open these accounts, you have to produce large volumes and make sure it's consistent. And if I ask for product, you can't run out. So we went out and produced a good amount, a huge, huge volume of tequila. These days, it's all about small batch productions. And as the more crafty you can get, the better, which is amazing. This is what I've always wanted, but that wasn't the story, a few years ago. So in terms of playing it safe, you can't really play it safe. You have to go as the market goes, or else you are not going to be able to survive. This industry develops, I say, in cycles. And if you don't right away, unless you're a massive, massive producer like a Cuervo or a Salsa, you have to be able to improvise.
Are there any, well, I assume that there are, but what sacrifices have you made in order to scale where Four Copas is now?
The sacrifice of where do you put your funds was a big one for us. We don't have unlimited funds. We're a small family-owned brand. We're not the Rock here, so we had to decide: do we go for the building our own distillery and starting craft, which in this market today would have probably been the move, but back then was not. And so that was the big decision of where do we go from here? And we decided to go to an existing factory and an existing master tequila producer. So that was the big decision that we were faced with. And many people still bring up as well. I guess the big decision is, why don't we take leverage our roots, leverage our connection, our history to Arandas, and bring Four Copas to Arandas. And we have a great amount of respect for the roots and where Cuatro Copas began as lowland produced tequila. And we never wanted to move from that original area of El Arenal or Amatitan.
Okay. When the pressure has hit the hardest, what did you lean on in order to keep moving forward? Because earlier you mentioned that the brand kind of died a couple times, and I'm sure starting off picking back up after everything, you've probably had those moments. What moment hit the hardest, and how did you lean into it just to keep going?
It was, I guess for me personally, one of the hardest moments was once we were producing the 1480. It was, where do we focus our efforts in terms of how do we grow? All of a sudden, we were with an amazing historic importer that is Price Imports, who we still have today, Henry Price, one of the original importers of Jägermeister, Tequila Tesoro. He knows the Camarena family very well. And I can go on with his historic brands. And he did an amazing job, and then all of a sudden start pushing it all across America. And so we didn't know how to hold on to this rocket ship. And at one point, I was overwhelmed. I said, where do I go? Do I travel to Florida and do an event here? Do I stay in California? Do I go to New York? I had no idea what to do. And my cousin went to school with Jenny Camarena. They were classmates. And I remember we were at Tails, and I hadn't seen Jenny since I was, a teenager. We went to go eat at Tommy's up there, and Julio hosted my whole family with his. And so we were there eating, and we had a great time. But she hadn't seen me in a good 8 to 10 years. And I just went up to Jenny and I said, "Hey, Jenny, so and so, I'm Raphael De Anda. I go by Rafi back in Arandas. So and so's cousin. It's great to see you." She goes, "Yeah, of course, I remember you. How you doing?" She really sat down with me, and she had this big event. She did her speech and came right back to me, and she just gave me loads of advice. And I'm like, "Jenny, this industry is insane. I don't know how you're doing it. You have this historic brand, this historic production." And she's just like, "No, you have to fight for what you got. Nothing's given to me, and everything is earned. And if I don't go out and work the market, nobody is going to just give me the placements." And her brands are historic. I mean, like, we all grew up drinking Tapatio and Arandas. And so for me, she's like, "Rafa, you have all the tools. You have everything. You have the legacy. You have any kind of support. You want advice, I'll give it to you. Stop by my factory anytime." And so to this day, I always cite her as a big influence and a big support, big boost that I needed at that time. So I'm very grateful to Jenny and her, even though the moment was brief, I really appreciated it.
Are there any production choices you've made that are purely based on gut instinct or data or tradition? Which of those?
One of the, I guess, controversial production choices that we've done from the beginning was being kosher. And that limits how you're able to do certain things, but it also opens up doors in other ways. So you get access to a very distinct clientele, being the Jewish community. And these days, I have a very close relationship that I've been able to develop with all the rabbis that come and visit. And I've been very grateful for their support as well. They've been very warm and hospitable. I've been to Brooklyn. They showed me their headquarters. But for example, we wanted to start aging and doing a special edition in sherry barrels. And I called the rabbi and I go, "Rabbi, hey, what do you think if we do this?" "Oh, no, being a kosher tequila, you can't age in anything grape based." And so we're like, "Oh, no way, you can't do that." Or maybe, pink tequila or something like that. And he said, "No, I mean, you have to go through a kosher cleansing of the barrels." And so I've learned what being a kosher tequila means and what sacrifices come along with that. So it is controversial because many people say, "Hey, is it worth it to be a kosher tequila?" And in our case, we'll say we've always stood by it. We think it is, just because of the support we've been able to have from that community, and being that we were the first kosher tequila as well. I think it's something that makes us very unique.
So being additive free, kosher, and organic. Are you able to talk a little bit on how it's more or less certified as kosher?
Sure. No, of course. The rabbi comes in. Well, it depends what kind of certification now you're talking, because there is a difference between regular kosher and kosher for Passover. And so kosher for Passover requires a much more strict process where he comes in, I think it's once every month, just to make sure that the process of being kosher is being kept. A lot of it is due to contamination. They don't want any grape-based spirits. So if you age a tequila in, for example, a wine barrel and you're making a pink tequila, everything has to be cleaned in the kosher way. The rabbi has to prove that everything's been decontaminated, for lack of a better word, based on tradition. And there's many kosher certifying agencies. We found that OK Kosher has been the most strict, and that's why we've been great partners with them for many years. And based on that, for us, they do come once a year, and they do certify and give the go ahead. I remember when we told Ileana, "Hey, we are kosher." She's like, "Oh my gosh, I don't think I've ever dealt with the kosher tequila brand." I said, "No, we've always been kosher. We need to maintain its kosher, and it has to be with OK Kosher, not just any other kosher agency." She's like, "All right, bring the rabbi down. We'll make sure we get to where we need to be." But I think, like I said, I think it makes it very, very unique and very special, and we'll forever be grateful to the Jewish community for their support.
With being kosher, additive free, and organic, what part of the production process would you say that would shock even some of the oldest humidors?
Man, I consider my tequila one based in tradition. So I don't know if necessarily it would shock anyone. I guess. Well, I guess the shock the oldest humidor in a positive way, that we've always been a wild yeast to produce tequila. We've never done any kind of strange yeasts. But in terms of, I mean, we've always been clay oven produced in an ordinal. So I think shocked in a good way, where they'll support the brand because of how we do keep with tradition. And we haven't created a cristalino, for example, or something like that. Which, power to whoever wants to do that, but we're a little bit more traditional.
Now, you mentioned the wild yeast strain. What trees or floral aspects are around the distillery that give you the flavors and the notes on your tequila that are from the wild yeast?
Every region has its own, how to say, characteristics. In the lowlands, you do have a lot more minerality. You don't have as much citrus fruits as you do in the highlands. So I think a lot of the flavor profile and savory notes come from actually the water instead of necessarily the trees in the lowlands. But that wild yeast has evolved with us, because we were produced in El Arenal originally with La Quemada. And then, even going from distillery to distillery, the yeast will behave differently based on the conditions. And so it has its own personality. That's what I always say, because everyone's like, "Hey, are you using the original yeast strain?" I say, "Yes, but you can't control yeast. It's a bacteria, right?" So if you're producing in one distillery versus another, even though it's a similar yeast strain, it's going to have a slightly different characteristic. So I always say, instead of being the main family member, you might get a cousin.
Talking about the production and how fast the market has just kind of blown up with additive free tequilas over the last couple years, what corners do you refuse to cut in your process?
We've always refused to use anything but a clay oven. We've been a clay horno produced tequila for many, many years, and we don't believe in the use of diffusers. And for four copas, not even the use of an autoclave, even though you can get very high quality tequilas with it. We just believe that the characteristics that come with using an horno are unique, and it may be a more expensive process because the yield isn't as high. But that is something that we've always stayed true to using, and goes along with our messaging of additive free and traditional tequila.
In talking about tradition, being traditional, where do you draw the line between tradition and innovation?
I think the innovation, it's tough, because sometimes the innovation is calling at your front doorstep. So, for example, we've had customers say, "Hey, when are you going to produce your cristalino?" which is a modern product. And we said, no, I'm sorry, we're not going to innovate that way. We won't strip the chemicals, or better said, the flavoring with it through carbon or anything like that. So we just don't believe in anything like that. Innovation, I think, comes in just due to making small batches and being more creative in that respect. So you can age in different kind of timelines where you'll say, like, now these days you'll see the world's oldest Blanco, or maybe the world's oldest Reposado, stuff like that.
Which I did purchase a bottle of the oldest Blanco.
Sure.
And honestly, Jay Bear and Maddie, like I've had Jay Bear on the show, and he was in studio for his episode, and phenomenal guy, love the guy to death. But man, like the amount of money that I've spent on getting his tequilas, like I've never had a bad tequila that he's picked, and I'm excited to see where he and Maddie go over the next few
Sure.
years, because everything that they're doing within the tequila industry is just setting sail with the industry. And I applaud them for everything that they're doing, and I support them 100%.
No, and as do I. I think people like yourself and like Jay are very important to the industry and bring the human side of it, the emotional side of true passion behind the tequila industry. So I'm grateful to Jay as well and his creativity to keep pushing us producers.
What's one experimental process or aging method maybe that you have considered but haven't dared to try yet? And I know it's probably tough being kosher, on being very experimental, but is there anything that you're looking forward to trying?
There is one project that we have on the wings, and we would kind of be the first to do it. So I don't want to say it yet, but it's a unique combination between different kinds of barrels. Let's put it that way, just to not get into specifics. But like, you aren't wrong in terms of the amount of options we have to play with and how creative we can get. There are certain limitations with being kosher, but I think we love to take advantage of that as an opportunity to really refine within that given window. So I won't go into major specifics because we have something that's cooking, that we're hopefully going to release relatively soon. But as you said, Ileana loves to get creative, and so do we. And my importer with Henry and his knowledge has been able to connect with a lot of different suppliers as well that have been able to give us access to unique barrels that would make Four Copas stand out without going crazy in terms of a different process that everyone isn't used to.
Well, I'm excited to see what comes of this.
Yes, yes, no, of course. It's something, like I said, it's something cooking. Can't get into too many details, but it's a unique use of different kinds of barrels to produce our special tequila.
What would you say is probably the hardest truth to scaling a tequila brand globally that most founders either never prepare for or haven't prepared for yet?
Well, I'll tell you one that we learned the hard way. Going into so many markets at once, I think we didn't know exactly how to take that kind of attention. These days, I would say there's only one of me, and you got to meet my brother as well, who's a core part of who we are. But there's only a very small amount of us who can spread the message with that kind of passion and love that I think our brand deserves. And it's hard to educate everyone. But we're currently in about 30 states and Italy. We have some interest in Argentina, so hopefully that finalizes as well. But it's hard to pick and choose which markets to focus on, which ones to really push and grow. There has to be some level of consistency, some making sure the message of, in our case, being the world's first organic tequila, that's our priority in terms of how we stand out in the market, because there's so many amazing brands. Everyone has their own niche. That's our niche. And many times, even within the markets that we're in, our message gets lost. And I've seen our distributor and our importer and our amazing team that we have. Sometimes they don't even say the message how we would say it as producers. And so I think when you're trying to grow, you want to take advantage of every opportunity that comes. Hey, let's say New York is calling, let's open that market. Hey, this distributor in Florida is calling, let's go there. And then all of a sudden you're stuck with 20 to 25 different distributors and you're like, oh my gosh, who do I go with? So that was our big problem. Um, and yeah, we still don't have an exact answer of it today. It takes us a big budget to be able to train everyone and have quality people, or in our case, around the world, that push the common message. It takes a lot of training and a lot of time, but we're holding on to the rocket ship and we're trying to balance it out.
So when a distributor tries to put four Copas basically in a box and they want to just basically put the brand into a category, how do you make sure that the brand doesn't get diluted?
A lot of the times that box is, hey, Four Copas is a premium tequila and it's made in Mexico and it's really good. That's what they'll say. And we say, no, you're missing the complete point. It has a legacy to it that nobody knows outside of you teaching them. So you have to go out and mention, hey, the brand was founded in 1997. It has real history. It is the world's first certified organic tequila. That's a big differentiator. And a lot of the times we'll get the question, how does that make you different? Why is that important? We say, well, we've known exactly how to succeed, but more importantly, we've known how to fail. And now we know what to do and what not to do going forward and how to make an amazing tequila. From the moment we started to the moment we disappeared to the moment we've been back. And there is consistency throughout. So I think saying that the accurate message of who we are, leaning into our history, and also being proud that we are Mexican owned with people with roots from there. I think that also makes us very different than many, many other brands. Now, I'm always careful in terms of how I speak about other brands because I have so much love and affection, and this business is hard. And so, if you're in the business with us, welcome to the fraternity that I'd like to say of tequila owners. And it's hard, and I have nothing but support. But we each brand has their unique aspect to it, and I think being Mexican owned and with a legacy from the area means something.
So we talked a little bit about scaling before, but how do you grow fast without losing soul and tradition? And also, how do you check yourself when you feel like the brand is starting to slip?
A lot of it comes down to people and how your communication is with your team in different markets. I'd rather grow slowly with the right people and say no to opportunities, which is something we've learned the hard way. Because sometimes we'll turn around and say and look at a market and see that the people that don't have that love for your brand after all the time and effort that you've gone into producing it and sacrificing everything you have to spread the message, and all of a sudden these people just get the product and throw it on a shelf. There's an account that comes to mind right away that I got a call yesterday from. It's actually in your neck of the woods in Vegas. I won't say the name of it, but they
I can guess one of
I,
one of three locations. You can either blink once or twice for yes, two for no.
But I'll try to make sure I keep a straight face. But it's in a major casino. It's a great, very important account. And my brother went up to the manager and said, "Oh my gosh, we're so honored that you're carrying Four Copas." And he goes, "Wow, I didn't even know that this brand was as special as what you're telling me. Why don't I know this much?" And I said, "How do you not know?" And so that's the part that it's just kills me because I said, we're so different. We're very special. We do have a lot of these characteristics that people praise from a Siete Leguas or an Ocho. And that message gets lost. And so we have to be able to get better at saying no to opportunities and capitalize on the ones that we do have.
Yeah, and also, I think that comes down to education and podcasts like Tactical Tequila, or you have Agave Social Club, and I think it's Agave Boy podcast. It's things like that, but not only that, then you have the influencers who now, once they try your product, if they like it, then they push it, or
Sure.
whatever. It's that education that once we get it out into the atmosphere, the world, it's those people that, one, will help grow your brand, but also, they're going to shed light on something that maybe 100,000, depending on how many followers they have, couple 100,000, had never realized, "Ooh, this brand's out there. Okay, let's try this. Let's give it a try."
No, 100%. And when we first started, the amount of tequila influencers was much smaller. I remember I was much younger. My dad's been in the business for over 15 years, and everyone talked about Tequila Aficionado and Mike. You had to get your product in front of Mike and Tequila Aficionado. And that was the number one guy. These days, there's so many major platforms, as you're saying, Jay being one of them, and yourself. It's amazing Tactical Tequila. But it's such a bigger market, and in certain ways it becomes easier to make sure that the proper message is out there.
What do you feel like in the US market? What has been your biggest growing pain, and how did you fix that growing pain?
The biggest growing pain we've had here in the US is how different each market is across the country, and that subculture within New York, Florida, LA, Texas being a very distinct culture. How do we get our message across to the point where it connects with the local community? In Texas, there's a huge Mexican population, which I'm very proud to say, but we have to say the messaging a little differently over there, where you do highlight the fact that we are Mexican owned and do have roots from there. Um, in a place like New York, not everyone is open to hearing the message from, let's say, for me, they'll only want to hear it from Ileana, which is a comment that I've heard from my distributor out there. They'll say, "Hey, no, we want the master distiller only," which makes no sense to me because we've been part of the process. If without we're a partnership, which is great. I want Ileana to be in as many events as I am, and she brings an enormous amount of value. But each market has their quirks, and so you have to learn how to capitalize on each one. I remember when I was in Miami, that was while being in the U.S. You're speaking Spanish the whole time, and that one is it's so much emotion. It's literally like you're almost back in Mexico, but you got the Colombian influence, the Cuban influence, and so yeah, that messaging has to be much more emotional and passionate in the way you say the brand, and the way you connect to that community. So each one has their own nuances, but we've been able to connect with the local teams and try to capitalize on spreading our message accurately.
That's great. If you had to relaunch for Copas in a new country tomorrow, and I know that you have stuff in the works, but what would your playbook look like?
Wow, in a new country tomorrow. There's so I was living in Europe for some time. I got my MBA out there in Spain. I do have family from Arandas that married people in Madrid, in my case. So I would probably want to launch there, and that culture is distinct unto its own. It's not a big tequila market, believe it or not. I always find it amazing, being that there's so many Spanish speakers there, but the tequila knowledge is very minimal. I remember my wedding was there. I've been married for about 2 or 3 years, and we had a big shipment of four copas in for the wedding. We got married out there in Spain, and the servers were serving blanco shots, and all of a sudden they were bringing me añejo and pouring in the same glasses. And I'm like, no, 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 they're very different. And I mean, it got to that knowledge where they said, oh, well, it's the same brand, isn't it? I said, no, there has to be a lot. If you think there's education needed in the U.S., there it's literally from ground zero. What is tequila, almost, and how is it made? And so that I would start in a European market because they do have the buying power. That's the business side of me, but it's also in Spain. I love how emotional they are, but they're just as crazy as us Latins. So I think we connect very, very easily. I think that's where I would go next.
What's one belief about tequila that you've made a mission to shatter?
I'm sure that this question is posed in such a way where everyone always says, "Oh, I always have the worst experiences with tequila," which is a comment I would get often. And I always say, "But have you tried organic tequila?" And I think the organic does make a difference. I think the clean, pure process that we've been able to establish over the course of many years, you'll notice the difference, especially the following day. I remember Mario, after we probably opened 10 different kinds. We didn't finish all 10, obviously, but we went through the chronological order of all four copas in his collection. And he texted me the following day. He goes, "Man, what a difference drinking quality tequila makes you, how in terms of how it makes you feel." And I said, "Yeah, no, I feel amazing. Like we're still doing our normal work day and what have you." So I think the education of tequila being, well, proper tequila. I mean, there's a lot of gray area here, right? In terms of mixto and different kinds, but properly made tequila will change your perspective on how to drink a spirit and how do you interact with the spirit.
What keeps you up more at night, protecting the craft or outpacing the competition?
It gets harder and harder to protect the craft. And by protecting the craft, I feel like you outpace the competition. The more traditional and the more grounded in your roots you are, the more you're able to stand out. Because if you keep trying to outpace competition, you won't ever finish. And by sticking to your traditions, by sticking to your values, by sticking to your virtues, that's how you're able to stand out and be consistent over a long period of time. I believe that in how we manage our life, how we manage our business, and I think a lot of those values come from people in Los Altos. We are very small town. We're very traditional in how we believe families should be grown. They always, which I find funny because, like I said, I split my time between California and Arandas. They always say, "Oh, the city folk," or "Oh, if you were raised in a city." But with me, they always say, "Hey, it's weird because you have small town values, but you love living in a city." And I said, "Well, yeah, there is a difference, right?" But uh, people, and I'm sure Ileana can attest to this, growing up in Amatitan. When you're from a small town, you have just a different outlook on life and a different set of priorities and how you develop even your brand, your business, and your family.
I think in town when I was younger would probably be more or less the size of a rondus when I was growing up. So it was very small and you knew pretty much everybody.
Sure, and in my case, my parents always say that when they were growing up, uh, like I said, my grandmother and all of my mom's family literally lived in the center of town where the market is. So if you ever go and see like Joyeria Orozco right in the heart of town, that's my mom's family. Um, they started off with about 5,000 people, more or less, and then when I started getting into the picture, 10,000, and then it started. These days, you're pushing 60, 70, maybe more. So the whole agave boom has exploded at the town. But as you're saying, your town has also grown over time, and that's kind of inevitable from the small towns. But I don't know if it happens with you, but when I go back to Aramas, those original families that have been there for a long time, they're very protective. They all, you always have this bond with them, right?
Well, I can tell you that there are the specific families that were in my hometown that are still there. Some of them actually really have never felt like they needed to leave the state of Ohio. And I'm just like, you got to get out and live. Like, just live.
No, there's a lot more. We always say this is the center of the world for us, but nonetheless, we still love living here in the U.S. And we're very grateful every day that we are here. Small town. I don't know if this phrase applies in English, but they say small town, big health. Is that something you've heard before?
I have heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a quite a common phrase for us, and growing up over there in Los Altos. But the families that have been able to endure in the region are very protected and very proud of their area. So
Yeah. Um, you know, we talked a little bit earlier about other brands, and I know you are not into necessarily, for lack of better words, bashing other brands or, talking bad about other brands because, your family is very well known, but you see a lot of celebrity brands cashing in now. What's the biggest lie do you think that they sell to the public? And not necessarily speaking on one specific brand, but just as in general.
a great deal of celebrity brands are pushed just to advance their own message, and tequila is just a byproduct. So they dilute the importance and tradition of what tequila is. For us, it's a way to connect to our legacy and lineage. What they're saying is it's just another spirit. You should drink it because I'm famous. So the lie they're teaching is that history doesn't matter, that legacy isn't important, that tradition is not a key part of who they are. That's why they're coming out of nowhere and pushing their product. So it's tough balance. I also think there is a benefit to having them. They do grow the category in general. Without them, a lot of people wouldn't even have awareness of what tequila is. Fortunately, it's not most of the time. It's not a great product, but nonetheless, it does grow the category. So there is some benefit to it.
I know you're biased and you love drinking your own tequila, which I don't blame you at all. When you taste a competitor's tequila and it falls short, how do you critique it or do you study it and wonder why it's still selling?
I well, as you're well aware, and I've mentioned it, it's like I said, I'm not a big fan of bashing other brands, but um, you put me in a tough position sometimes where I am in circles where we all are tequila owners, and these days, since there's so many brands, it's more and more common, right? I actually try to learn and ask questions. Hey, how are you growing? Hey, how are you able to push your message? And I'll compare between our product and theirs internally, maybe not externally, because to be honest, everyone's going to say that they have the best product, right? So if I'm there sitting with other owners, they're going to say, well, I don't like your tequila. And everyone's drinking their own tequila to a certain extent, but I am tasting and I am comparing internally. A lot of this time, a lot of those different experiences will happen at trade shows. It'll be common where I'll get a different owner and, hey, let me try this because they specialize in reposado. So let me try your reposado. Let me try your 110 proof reposado, and you'll see their facial reactions. I'll be like, "What do you think?" And, "Oh, it's amazing," but you can kind of see that they probably don't agree with it. So there is a healthy sense of politics, I say, within different owners, and everyone's proud of their hard work and money that they've invested in their product. Um, but I try to learn. Answering the question, I try to learn as much as I can and see what I can implement from their success and copy it to for Copas' growth.
It's a very politically correct answer, and I love it. And by the way, your 110 expressions. For me, I'm a high proof tequila drinker through and through. And when we met in LA, we had talked just before LA, but when we met in LA and I actually sampled your 110 expressions, I was blown away because for me that's my jam. I love high proofs.
Yeah, no, it's something.
Whether you give me a high proof Blanco, still strength, or a high proof Repo, or a high proof Añejo, extra Añejo, if you know you get them out there, it. I I I just love that because for me, Blancos, of course, and high proof Blancos, you're always going to get what the producer is trying to get out there with the tequila. You're going to get all of the flavors that they're trying to expose you to. And then once you get into the aged expressions, you're going to, of course, get the barrel notes and everything off of that. But when it comes to that, that's where I feel like you're also now experiencing all of what that person wants you to get off the Blanco, and then you get those additional notes on top of that.
100%. No, for us, the 110 proof was a project that was based on demand. We never thought we'd come up with a 110 high proof line across our whole line, and 110 is the highest you can go. So we've definitely, when we first created it, I think it was just, what is this? And now these days, high proofs are all the rage. So we've kind of settled into that movement nicely. But I remember when we first released it, everyone was a little bit perplexed and didn't really understand kind of what that was. So I'm been very pleasantly surprised, and I second your comment. You'll find that most tequila producers will mainly drink blancos. I remember I was at Siete Leguas, and Fernando was also like, "Oh, I only drink Blanco." And he has tequila from his father's generation, and he's like, "No, no, no, I'll go to a party and only drink a Blanco." So it's pretty amazing.
What's your response when someone says all tequilas taste the same?
I'll tell him, "Try it." Make sure. I mean, you clearly need a little bit of education, but obviously, I'll try to be nice about it and be like, "Look, respectfully, I don't agree with you at all." But let's taste a few. I'll walk with you through the different tasting. I mean, even when I was in Las Vegas and we did the blind tasting over there at the cask with our good friend Mark, it was just amazing to see the range of just different añejos, let alone blancos and repos and different. So the fact that somebody would dare to say, "Hey, all tequila's the same." I mean, then you can even get into mixtos and, oh man, it's endless, the flavor profiles you can get. So I'd say to this, whoever would be saying that statement, respectfully, I disagree. You gotta come with me. I'll teach you a little bit. Let's try some four copas.
Well, and as you mentioned that event, like it was so interesting to me where Fortaleza actually ended up on that spectrum. And even from the best to the least best, we won't say the worst because all of them were amazing tequilas.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, it's just amazing to me where Fortaleza ranked in that because Fortaleza is regarded as this unicorn of tequilas, and blind tastings will totally change your view on any tequila, I feel. And we've seen it in different awards and stuff like that, but it's just so interesting to me to see where people's palates are when it's blind as opposed to when they have the bottle in front of them and they're like, "Oh yeah, okay, this is good. I like this."
Yeah, you have all these preconceived notions of the brands that'll come into the tasting and your perception of it. But the blind tasting is the most innocent, natural way you can go ahead and experience an amazing tequila. So I was amazed by when I was at that tasting, just as a fan of tequila, in terms of how it can, the different experiences there.
So when it's all said and done and you're 6 feet under or whatever your preference is, how do you want the industry and your competitors to remember your name?
I want everyone to understand that Raphael De Anda and his family from Arandas, a family that has a lot of passion for where they come from and try to bring their Mexican roots everywhere they are. To remember the fact that Four Copas is a product that has heart and soul poured into it from a small family-owned brand, and hopefully you can taste that in every bottle that we produce. So every time you're tasting an amazing bottle of the world's first organic tequila, you can think this is a family that puts their heart and soul and their life into what they do, and we all we want is for that to translate our love into of the industry, our love for the region, to go all across the world.
Well, Raphael, where can everyone find you on social media?
I have an Instagram account I'm listed at Instagram at Raphael Agave, and then you can also follow us at Four Copas. And then I also have the at Organic Tequila. So any one of those three, but my personal page is at Raphael Agave, where I love showing stories, putting pictures of different people. I'll go to different events, and also put different memories that I'll have over my many years in the industry. So please follow me on Instagram. That's the main platform. And hopefully I can meet all of you guys very soon. I love talking to new tequila connoisseurs and veterans in the industry over many memories of Four Copas and just tequila in general.
Well, Raphael, I thank you for your time and I appreciate everything that you've educated on this evening. Everyone, thank you for tuning in. Have a good night.
Thank you, my friend, for your time. Much respect for all your hard work, and thank you so much for helping this come together.
Thank you.